everyone. This is episode 2 of our new online series. And before we get started, let me just do a little bit of brief housekeeping. So the most important thing to remember is that the next symposium, the CIO Symposium, will be on May 20th, 2025. We will also have a pre-event for VIPs on May 19th. So this is a new online series. We are eventually going to invite a live audience, but for now, we are just doing it as a recording. So we're going to get started. So hi, Irving. How are you today?
Hey, Alan, it's so nice to be here with you again. I am fine. Besides continuing to read and write about AI, I have to tell you, I am very excited about the upcoming World Series between the Yankees and the Dodgers. I don't know if you remember that I was born in Cuba and was there until I was 15 and came to the US, so I have baseball in my blood. I hope you understand.
Yeah, well, I have baseball in my blood too. I happen to be a Red Sox fan, but I have to tell you that our house is split this year. I am rooting for the Yankees, which
As
is
am I.
hard to say as a Red Sox fan, but at least they're in the Eastern Division. And my wife, who is from the West Coast, is going to root for the Dodgers. So there you
Okay.
go. You know?
Yep. Well,
Anyway, besides baseball, we have some pretty big news at MIT. Do you want to just briefly talk about that?
yeah. So let me tell you, we'll discuss this now, but I started looking at the blog that we're going to discuss actually sometime a few months ago. And it took me a while to figure out how to write about it. And finally I did. And, I edit quite a bit. And then I was getting ready to post it on Thursday, May 17th. And as I was doing an almost final editing on Monday, I don't mean May 17, I'm sorry, on Thursday, October 17.
Right.
And a few days as I was editing this on Monday, October 14, all of a sudden I saw the news that Daron Acemoglu, his MIT colleague Simon Johnson, and University of Chicago economist James Robinson are sharing the 2024 Nobel Prize in Economics. Now, that's very exciting for you and I. These are.
It is super exciting. I mean, I am so proud of them. I'm proud of MIT and but so just very, very briefly, I mean, what was their research about?
Well, what I read is that the research is because their work, and by the way, the third person who got the Nobel Prize, James Robinson, is an economist at the University of Chicago, where I got my PhD. So it's nice for me to be affiliated with all three. But anyway, they were awarded the thing because they illuminated the relationship between political systems and economic growth. And they really were able to analyze that societies with a poor rule of law and institutions that exploit the population do not generate growth or change for the better compared to societies that follow the rule of law. That is super sophisticated analysis, which is why they deserve the economics prize.
And I guess I would just add to that, in addition to following the rule of law, I think that there is some benefit to the freedoms that we have in the United States, specifically free speech.
Well, that should be part of the rule of law, at least of our rule of law. Very good point, Alan.
Indeed. Well, Anyway, so now you have a blog post, and it just so happens your post talks about an article written by who is now a Nobel laureate. And so your post is AI advances aren't likely to occur as nearly as or as quickly. Uh, I'm sorry, aren't likely to occur nearly as quickly as many believe. Um, And so you talked a little bit about what inspired you to
Yeah.
write this post, but oh, you have more. Okay.
So, so let me tell you, last July, the New York Times published an article, What if the AI boosters are wrong? And the article was based on the opinion of Darren Acemoglu. I know about Darren. I followed him he's a top economist at MIT. And we haven't had him at the symposium, but we had David Autor and all. I mean, MIT is a powerhouse in economics. And I went and read Darren's article, and I have to tell you, I read the parts that I understood, because there was quite a bit that I didn't understand. And his article was The Simple Macroeconomics of AI. And in the article, Darren analyzed what productivity improvements can we expect from AI. And his analysis was that over the next 10 years, the productivity improvements will not be very large. They will be improvements, but not very large. And that is quite a bit different from the analysis of other people, also very good.
So in support of Darren's argument, isn't it true that this has been kind of a historic norm that new technologies come and it takes much longer for them to get into the economy than people predict?
Precisely. That's been my assumption as well as my experience. Because remember, my whole career, I've had one leg in the research world, IBM Research and MIT now and so on, and one leg in the business world, based also on my role as an executive in IBM. And based on my career and based on my hanging out with people at MIT, like Eric Brynjolfsson and others, I have learned that traditionally, historically transformative technologies take time to play out, take time to deploy in the marketplace. And by time, and Eric did quite a bit of analysis here, it's decades. Because, Alan, how can you say that a technology is transformative if it can change the world in 3 or 5 years? That doesn't feel very transformative. Transformations take time. People
Yeah, well,
have
I
been
think I,
right.
I
Let
think
me
I
let me make one small point. People have been writing, well, Irving, that's true of all the other ones, the internet, electricity, what have you, but AI is different. AI will see the major transformations in 3 to 5 years, and that didn't feel right. That's not been my experience. And here comes Darren Acemoglu, and he validates my impression, my intuition. And not only does he validate it, but 3 days before I posted the blog, the Swedish Academy of Sciences gives a share of the Nobel Prize. So I was delighted.
Yeah, so just to be clear, right? So Darren, he's not questioning the long-term potential of AI, correct?
Exactly, exactly. And in fact, one of the things that caused me to wait to write the blog is I wanted more details about what did Darren really mean? And then I found a superb report by Goldman Sachs Research, which included an interview with Darren Acemoglu. And the very capable person that conducted the interview, let me make sure I have her name right. Well, I will find it, but she conducted the interview, and the first question she asked him is, Professor Acemoglu, how come you are more conservative in your projections about AI than almost anybody else, including Goldman Sachs' own economist
And McKinsey.
and McKinsey and quite a few others?
Right.
And Darren said, it's a matter of timing. I absolutely agree that AI over the long term will be truly transformative. It will change research, it will change healthcare, it will change a number of industries in the long term. However, based on my really detailed economic analysis, remember, he got a Nobel Prize, so you have to respect his ability as an
He's
economist.
definitely someone we need to listen to, no doubt.
He's as is Simon Johnson and as is, all three of them. In the short term, my analysis said this isn't going to happen. And so that's why I had to publish the paper.
All right.
So
Well,
it's a
let's
question
let's
of
take a moment,
timing. Yes,
Irving. Let's take a moment and
yes.
just play the role of the optimist. How are people pushing back on this analysis that it's going to take more time than people expect? Why do people think that the gains from AI are going to come so much more quickly?
Well, for the same reason that in the 1990s, people thought that the internet and the World Wide Web would absolutely transform the world. Because history shows, and this has been analyzed, this is not Irving speaking off the top of his head. Every time you get a really exciting new technology, electricity, the internet, now AI, part of the excitement is people say, oh my God, this will happen much faster. And in fact, the reason that you get bubbles that eventually burst is because when the financial sector sees all that, they say, let's invest like crazy. Let's go ahead and put money so that when this takes off in 3 years, we make huge amounts of money. This goes back to, I don't know, the tulip craze in the, 18th or 19th century. This is classic. Alan, you have to agree with me that
Well,
people have been very excited about the internet and especially AI. I'm sorry, about AI, machine learning, deep learning, generative AI. So they said, well, this is so wonderful. It's going to change the world in 3 to 5 years.
all right. Well, so the story that I gravitate to because I'm a fan of Nikola Tesla is, at the Chicago
Yes,
World's Fair at the end of the 19th century, they lit the whole thing up with light bulbs. He was there on stage doing demonstrations of electricity. It seemed like magic. And
right.
it seemed like it was going to transform the world. But as you have pointed out to me time and again, how long did it take?
It took 40 years.
It took 40 years. That's exactly right. So, it didn't it didn't change the world overnight. So, I can see that. But getting back to AI, so how much CapEx has been put into AI roughly based on these reports?
How much, I'm sorry?
Capital expenditure.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
But look at the investments in chips, GPUs from
Yeah.
NVIDIA and others, and more recently TPUs, tensor processing units. That it's another chip that Google has developed, and there'll be more to come. That's number one. Gigantic data centers to keep analyzing all this stuff and so on. And then more and more you're reading that the data centers and these chips take so much electricity that companies like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and others are now looking to nuclear reactors to generate the electricity. So if you add all that together, this is trillions of dollars that are being invested now. And there are articles. In fact, I've written a second blog that we can discuss in the future, where people are questioning whether those investments can, whether poor AI can handle those investments. That is, will it be able to get revenue given those investments? And Alan, this is particularly important for you and I because of the MIT CIO Symposium. We have two major audiences. We have the research world of MIT and other universities, but we have the business world as represented by the CIOs that come to the symposium. And we need to be very realistic with them. And that's why I'm particularly sensitive to note, to tell them the best information we have.
Yeah, I totally agree. And of course, that's why we hope people do come. But so listen, we're beginning to run short of time. I just want to ask you one more question because, and I do encourage everybody to go and read your full blog post, which really goes into all of this in detail.
And,
But
has links to the various articles that I have mentioned.
and it has links. Yes, your blog posts are very well referenced for sure. Okay. So just to sort of set up one of our future conversations, do you think that maybe people are underestimating the limitations of LLMs and this is making them overly optimistic in terms of the short-term potential?
I think so, but it's too early to tell. The reality is, why does it take decades for, as you mentioned, electricity to play out? Well, you had to wire the world to that electric transmission. You had to totally transform manufacturing from the old world to the assembly line with individual motors. You had to develop consumer electric devices, refrigerators, and so on. All that takes time. And I think people just get overexcited. It's the hype. And a lot of the hype is generated by the financial industry, which is looking for the next big thing that can help them make gigantic amounts of money. And needless to say, the creators of the technologies are also very excited because who wants to buy a technology and applications from people that are not overly excited? So I think it's a matter of time. I am convinced that AI is the defining technology of the next at least 30 years, maybe long. But as in the past, it will take time to understand what works, what doesn't work, what's harder than we expected. People say, well, AI, but the AI mimics the human brain. Oh, give me a break. First of all, we don't know. I mean, I've been reading quite a bit, not just about artificial intelligence, but also about neuroscience and cognitive science and what I have learned from neuroscientists and cognitive scientists. By the way, Alan, I don't know if you know, MIT has huge, wonderful departments in neuro and cognitive science, not just in computer sciences. And they say we don't understand the human brain. It's far more complicated than you can imagine. Uh, Linguists say natural language is all about communication, not reasoning. And that's why it's a kind of brain to brain. So if you say, no, no, you don't need that anymore, we say, yeah, what they say is, Irving, if you say that, you don't know what you're talking about. So Alan, let's give the research time to play out. And this is not insulting AI. I want
No, but what it's telling me, Irving, is that I'm not going to have an AI anytime soon to play your role on this podcast. You're not replaceable by an AI.
I may be replaceable.
No, no, you're not. I'm telling you right now,
Yeah,
not replaceable. I'm
no, no,
declaring that.
but what happens, and this is really true, AI is a tool. I mean, these advanced technologies are tools. And when people say, no, 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 Irving, it's different. No, I'm very comfortable with AI being a tool, and the tool will make us much more productive. It will transform research and so on, all things that Darren said. And then what happens is people like me, obviously much younger versions of me, will learn how to work with those tools and do all kinds of exciting things with those tools. The internet has been such a tool, computers have been such a tool, and AI is such a tool, but it takes time.
All right, Irving. Just one more thing. Tell everybody where they can read your blog and learn more.
I post my weekly blogs, which I've been doing since 2005, in www.irvingwb.com.
Well, you do post them there, but perhaps even more important to our community is that you post them in the public square, which you can access if you join our Friends plan, and you can read them either place. I do encourage everyone to read Irving's blog, but that's all for today. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.